Welcome to Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me as always, this time in his office at Queen's Park is Northumberland-Peterborough South, David Piccini. David, thanks for joining me, and thought we'd start right away on the passing of the act that will extend the declaration of emergency to June the 30th. Talk about why that was done by your government when many people thought maybe this would be when it ended on June 2nd, that we might see a lifting of it.
Well, certainly, Mark. First and foremost, the health and safety of Ontarians is a top priority, and the ability to be able to ensure that we're looking after Ontarians across this province. We have still a lot of testing to still get done. We have to ramp up testing. Obviously, there are areas of the GTA that aren't quite over this, so certainly a declaration of a state of emergency was warranted. Now, having said that, the specific emergency orders that fall under are obviously subject to change, and we've seen with the gradual reopening of the economy the ability to change those emergency orders. So again, I would stress to those watching, this does not mean that we're not making progress in this province, because we are making significant progress. We lead the nation in per capita testing, but we have a lot more to do, and certainly regions like ours and other areas are going to see a continued reopening of this economy.
David, explain to myself and the viewers the difference between the declaration of emergency, which was extended, and the emergency order, which could run out on June 9th unless the province extends that. What's the difference between the two?
Well, the emergency orders specifically that fall under the declaration get, the ability to say gatherings are limited to X number amount of people, the ability to close and or reopen certain workplaces. So we're not there yet vis-a-vis contact access tracing. We don't have the rampant testing that we want to. Obviously, the Premier has been a force on that in ensuring that we continue ramping up testing. And Mark, even locally, we're at a place where I'm still on the line with our hospitals on what continued and expanded testing would look like in our community. You're seeing as well, it's not even just here, but locally, these difficult decisions are being had at a municipal and town level too. I note, recent closures at the municipal level. So certainly when the province moves in a direction, as we've seen, of a laxing of some of the restrictions, of a gradual reopening of the economy, local areas are able to take a somewhat prolonged approach. They can't open things up in front of the province, but they can keep things. If you look at the Peel region and other areas, they're able to prolong some of the more restrictive measures. Now, look, we in our community are doing well. I know people are very keen to get back to work. No one wants to open this economy more than Premier Ford and our government. And we're pushing to do this in a safe and gradual manner. And I know in our community, many people are actively continuing to want to see a gradual, safe reopening of this economy.
So can I ask why the declaration and the emergency orders don't run parallel, I guess, because with the two different dates?
Well, the emergency orders, we can extend them, debate them here in the legislature. Each order is specific. Obviously, we can change some of the restrictions from within the order. So certainly it gives the flexibility. For those wondering, how does this apply to me? It's the orders you have to watch for, not the declaration.
I think that's where a lot of people get confused as to what they should be listening to.
Correct.
Orders are with one ending at one time and another starting at another, and that's where people were getting confused as to what they were supposed to follow.
I'll give a good local example. Someone who owns a local spa, does RMT, things like that, a registered massage therapist, they're looking and saying, what the declaration of the state of emergency, extending that. Now that obviously with the gradual reopening of registered massage therapists, of expanded healthcare professions, they're able to open. So this declaration, it doesn't inextricably pertain to their specific business. Now, With respect to the context of the declaration and how that makes people feel, there are certainly, I do understand and I'm conscious of the fact that by extending the declaration, it makes people weary, and there are they willing to go out. So there are a certain segment of the population who are going to wait until there's a vaccine, until there's no declaration, no anything before they will resume a full normal. And then there are many others, again, to each their own. And we have to respect that people who are at higher risk take different precautions than those who are at lower risk. People in rural Ontario, there's a very different reality. I mean, this is the case of two COVIDs, the GTA and elsewhere. So, we're conscious of this, and this declaration just gives us certain abilities, and I think more specific to areas of the GTA. But we're seeing a gradual reopening in Northumberland-Peterborough South, and it has to be safe. But again, let's give us some runway here, and the ability of government to be responsive, because there would be nothing worse than removing that and then reinstating the declaration at a later date. I mean, that's certainly something we want to avoid.
Speaking with your counterpart at the federal level, MP Philip Lawrence, we talked about last week on last week's show with him, was the fact that we not pounded, but got the message out so much to stay at home, physical distance, and now we're saying it's okay to go outside as long as you physical distance, wear a mask. So, it's that catch-22 where we've got people so ingrained in one thing, and now we're trying to slowly reverse that to be able to get people back out and get them to believe that trust that they can get out. It seems to me to be the biggest hurdle next.
Yeah, that is certainly, it's a bit of a culture shift. And I think when faced with, things change, are fluid. They change daily, weekly. And when faced with a pandemic that was moving quite rapidly, that was shuttering economies in places like Italy, I have family there, and it was devastating. I mean, the hospitals were completely overburdened, and so there were a lot of unknowns. Now, obviously, things have changed. Our awareness of the impacts of COVID-19 and of the effect that this is having. Thanks to measures we've taken, the alternative is far worse. The alternative is overburdened ERs. The alternative would be an NHH, CMH that would be overrun. And that's not something that is acceptable to this government. And so we've taken extensive measures. We obviously have seen incredible capacity now in hospitals, to the point where we're reallocating resources in many of our hospitals across Ontario to the front lines of this, which is now long-term care, of course, and making progress on long-term care file, reducing the number of red designated homes, and even bringing the army. So, I think that as at the forefront, when many unknowns, taking a cautious approach and ensuring the safety and well-being of Ontarians was the utmost priority. How Ontario's fared, in the States, we'd be the fifth state, were we in the United States, and relative to those larger states like New York and others, we fared very well in Ontario, and that's thanks to decisive measures the government have taken. And yes, we now have to signal to the public that going out and supporting local and the gradual reopening of the economy, do get out. And I understand for many that's a different message, but we now have the PPE. The supply chains are moving. We have a 24-hour turnaround for PPE to any one of our health long-term care hospitals in the province. So a lot of things are in place behind the scenes that the public don't necessarily see. But this was a Wild West PPE environment. And planes coming back from China to Canada, retooling manufacturing. So much has gone on, and what you think would take months and years, in a matter of weeks. We've seen completely ramping up of made in Ontario masks, of PPE and protective equipment, retooling of workplaces to incorporate protective measures. That's all happened very fast, and thanks to a very creative and an innovative community.
Agree 100%, David, that decisions were made at the time when they had to be made on the best possible information that you had. Everybody's going to look back, and I'm sure all four levels of government are going to say the decision that they made maybe wasn't the right decision, but at the time it was the best decision for the safety of all residents of Ontario.
Yes, there will be a time to do a thorough review of this. Right now, I'm getting set. I mean, we have a standing committee of finance that's doing an exhaustive review of the tourism sector right now, and then we move into various other segments of our economy, and culture, manufacturing, construction, development, small, medium-sized businesses. So, there's a focus now, and there's going to be a time where we're going to obviously take a long look and fix the problem in long-term care. We're doing that actively right now. In fact, we launched a staffing strategy long before COVID, and the move from ward rooms to semi and private rooms. I mean, the ward setting, which was 4 people to a room, wasn't working. So there's a lot to do. No doubt there's much more we can and must do as a government, and there's going to be a long, hard look at the federal level, the provincial level, municipal level, to measures that were taken. And I think there are lessons learned here. Things like helping the most vulnerable, them, to CCI and things like that. Lessons learned on getting food out, food banks, on PPE distribution. These are all things that we must catalog and have. God forbid we need to use them sometime, in the years, decades, hundreds of years.
David, one thing we're seeing currently during this COVID-19 is the fact that some municipalities are making, as you said, they're allowed to make decisions for what's best for their communities. So you're seeing some communities open up recreation facilities, some fields. You're seeing others, such as Cobra Council's decision on Monday evening, where they closed the beach off because they thought that was best for their community, to keep their community safe. Personally, that's where I'm seeing some people are getting upset, because they're seeing some communities open other things while other communities are closing things down. What do you say to those people, that are seeing some places opening it up, whereas other communities in your riding are trying to be cautious and slowing things down?
Well, no, I mean, on day one, I convened a meeting with our mayors and all of our mayors and First Nations chiefs and our federal member to ensure we had a weekly dialogue and a weekly venue. This happens every Friday, and it gives us an opportunity to discuss things. When we looked at boat launches and grapple with a number of issues, we looked at economic recovery. This has been a venue for elected members from across our riding to gather and discuss common issues. I work in partnership and support of our upper and tiers, and respect the grassroots decisions made at a grassroots level. I respect that decisions made by duly elected members at the municipal level, and try my best whenever called upon to support them, and bear the necessary resources at the provincial level when they ask for support, and even long-term on infrastructure projects and other things, specific funding projects. But, we've got a close relationship, and the duly elected members at the municipal level, I work as best I can to support.
David, we're up on our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about the fact that the province has frozen electricity rates at a certain price until the end of October. And also, you're able to give some good news to a local organization in Coburg that helps youth, and we'll talk about that on the backside of the show as well. You're watching Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this short break. Back to Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me as always is Northumberland-Peterborough South MPP David Piccini. And David, it was announced late last week on the fact that the province of Ontario is freezing electricity rates at 12.8 cents a kilowatt until October 31st to help those in need and help everybody that's in need in the province. On top of that, you also announced an emergency assistance program that will help not only residents but businesses. So first, let's talk about the freezing of the electrical rate at 12.8 cents.
Mark, I mean, I know we've taken of measures to support seniors, low-income Ontarians, small businesses, working closely with the federal government, obviously hydroelectricity. I mean, this was one of the number one issues 2 years ago when I ran an election, and we're looking at the wide gambit of how to support Ontarians. But during trying to like these in COVID-19, providing this sort of relief and support to Ontarians is critical. That's why we continue to take measures to support Ontarians, like freezing that rate at 12.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Again, substantially below the rates many Ontarians were. We know they're home during the day, and if they were paying on peak hours, it would be the burden would be significant on Ontarians. So, in addition to that, I think it's important to note that for those families struggling, Mark, there's $9 million for the COVID-19 Energy Assistance Program to help pay energy bills, and an additional $8 million through the same program to help small businesses struggling to pay their electricity bills as a result of COVID-19 outbreak. And finally, extending the Ontario Energy Board's winter disconnection, of course, till the end of July, because the last thing we want is for a vulnerable Ontarian, senior, someone living in rural Ontario, low income, to have their energy disconnected. So these are some of the things I'm discussing with our constituents, and important decision for Minister Rickford and our government to make.
You've had a couple of recovery consultations. Are you hearing that during the consultations? I know you've only had 2 with nonprofits and SME and manufacturing, but I guess manufacturing would be a big one. Would they qualify, or would they be too large to qualify under this program?
Yes, I mean they are eligible certainly to apply if suffering significant challenge. But one of the things I heard, be it small business, nonprofits, are these fixed costs. And the fixed costs, I mean, and myself in doing line by line review, obviously I have responsibility to the taxpayers and in managing our local office budget, but our energy costs, some of the highest line items in my budget. So I know for any business, and in previous careers, those electricity. I mean, I was working at trade when companies were looking elsewhere because of the astronomical rates of hydro in Ontario. It fundamentally made us less competitive. So at a very local level, when it makes it less competitive for us, it's obviously a strain on local Ontarians. So this is an important decision, and providing that relief is an extra added relief for those fixed costs for businesses as they ramp up, and as many are looking and exploring opening in a safe manner. The last thing they need is, oh goodness, my bills are gonna pose an added burden. So it's an important first step, and obviously part of our government's broader reformation of the energy system here, and hydro, and taking a long look at restoring a lot of broken trust and some of the accountability on that file with Ontarians.
And one thing, David, we're going to see is at the end of this, when this runs out on October 31st, on November 1st, it's been teased a little bit by the province that a new way of how you pay electricity is going to be shown to the residents, where they can pick a plan, as I understand, come November 1st, a plan that might suit them better than what is currently in place.
Yes, and again, I mean, this is a significant issue for many in our community. There was a lot of frustration over how the file was handled in the past, and certainly when we, looking forward, we want to empower consumers to do what makes most sense for them. And as we go forward, and as we work with constituents, I'm going to lean heavily on their feedback as we look at models going forward. It's too early to speculate at this stage.
You're watching Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me as always is Northumberland-Peterborough South MPP David Piccini. And David, out of all this, you were able to bring some good news story to Rebound Child and Youth Services on last Friday, where you're able to announce $309,000, $600 for them to be able to expand their QP program. Talk about, first, before we talk about the program, what the money is going to be used for, talk about the fact that in the midst of this, you're able to bring great news to an organization that was able to reevaluate the way they do business and to be able to help the people that are in need on pivoting on a dime during COVID-19.
Yeah, and this is an important thing to remember, that despite all of the additional pressures that COVID-19 places on us, not only in our individual lives, but from a public policy perspective, COVID-19 has focused us to rethink on how we do our business in governing this province and taking additional measures. But the day-to-day supports and the vital services that Ontarians require and people in our community require don't stop just because of COVID-19. And, congruent to that, my job in advocating for those organizations and supporting them doesn't stop either. So this was a project, again, a big shout out to our police chief, Paul Vandergraaf, for always looking outside the box, for innovative ways, for being a strong community partner. We're very fortunate to have strong police services all throughout Northumberland-Peterborough South. And for bringing this to my attention, to the attention, most importantly, of Carol Beauchamp at Rebound Child and Youth Services, and the remarkable team at Rebound. I mean, they're doing such fantastic work. From the visits that I have every few months to the run, they do so much important work out of Rebound. And, working alongside the police chief, alongside Rebound, to bring that $300,000 into our riding to support at-risk youth. I mean, this is at its core. This, to me, Mark, was one of the reasons I got involved in politics, was to support our youth. I'm a younger MPP, I think one of the youngest we've had in Northumberland-Peterborough South. And I want our community to be a place where youth can grow, where youth can innovate, where we can start innovative small rural businesses. But there are many barriers for low income, for at-risk youth, and having programming there, having a guiding, helping hand through the phenomenal team at Rebound, and being able to support and expand their services across Northumberland County into some of the more harder to reach corners. It's so important, and I'm just so proud and honored to have played a small role. But most importantly, the thanks goes to the amazing community partners. There's too many to list, but they're partnering with our school boards, with our county, with the different police service boards. I mean, it's so expansive. There's so many remarkable partners that have come to the table to make this a reality.
Speaking with Carol Beauchamp last week on another program that we run here all around the town, hosted by Linda Kay. Speaking with her Carol said that if you would have asked her 2 months ago or 3 months ago that they'd be able to do meetings through Zoom and the people would be involved and willing to do it, she said she would never have thought of that.
Certainly, are we going to always have a need for person-to-person interaction, specifically when dealing with that most at risk and the vulnerable? Yes. Now, having said that, to the cases where you can identify supports provided and the dependency, I mean, so many youth, when I grew up, I remember it was a big deal when we got our first family computer. I remember playing Microman and a couple of different games on the computer. And I remember it was a big thing to have a family computer, jostling with my dad at the end of the workday to try and use it to play the little school bus game. I think everybody remembers that old game. So I think that was my reality. We didn't really have computers. It was to play outside and make believe games and in the tree forts and things like that. But today's youth are very technology oriented, and are using. I'm seeing young people throughout every day when I'm out in the community, younger and younger folks using smartphones, iPad devices. So I think there is, for our next generation, our young, there is a familiarity and a comfortable feeling with utilizing and using technology.
And David, just to wrap up here, I thought I'd give you the last closing moments here of the show to be able to put a message out saying that this is Pride Month and that the flags have been raised all across the Northumberland County at police stations, at county buildings, municipal buildings as well, and how important it is that this month has come a long way since when it started.
Yeah, Mark, thank you for giving me that opportunity. There's two things I want to mention. Obviously, there, I wish I'd been able to join Coburg, who again were so proactive in what that they've done. But so many before us, through immense struggle and sacrifice, have paved the way to where we are today, where really, love is love, and people should be respected by the content of their character, not who they love. To steal a phrase from Martin Luther King Jr., this is the core tenets of of our society, and what we collectively, most of us, believe in. And I think it's important that we continue to send that message. This would be a month where, under normal circumstances, I'd be going up to join the parade in Norwood. I mean, even to the smallest corners, farthest corners of our riding. I've always joined Lions, the members of the Norwood Lions, and folks there, and in Coburg as well. And so, I mean, across our riding, I think an acknowledgement that indeed love is love, and that we have to be accepting of neighbors. Again, judge people on their character, on how they treat you and others, and people are entitled to love who they want to love. And so I think that's an important message, and one that that I would encourage everyone to spread throughout Northumberland-Peterborough South.
David, our time's up. Thanks very much. Have a good day at the legislature.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks for having me.
You've been watching Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. We'll see you in 1 week's time.